Yo, what's going on guys, it's me Morvi and I'm back again with another top 10 games video. This time we are doing the forgotten games of the Xbox original. Now, I know some of you watching this may be a little bit too young for this console as it's early noughties we're talking, so some of you may have been 1-2 years old at this point. This is the generation that made gaming what it is today. Back then, people still saw it as just a silly pastime where you get to shoot little guns and attack little aliens. Like, it was just seen as a silly little pastime. Whereas now, it's pretty much seen as a real sport. People are making a lot of money from it, and it's just awesome to see, to be honest. So, we are going back. How back? Way back. So, we're going to be looking at the games of the past. Thankfully, some of these games that are remasters and remakes, but some have been left to rot. And sadly, they are the best ones on this machine. Before we start, guys, if you hit that sub button and that bell button, you get to see all my newest content, and it will help me out so much. Also, if you want to follow me on Twitch, it is twitch.tv/Mr. Morvi. Yeah, come give me a follow, and I'll see you over there. Without further ado, let's jump into this video. Okay, first up is Kung Fu Chaos. I have spent countless hours replaying this game with friends and family as a child. Kung Fu Chaos from the outset looks like another party fighting game, but the concept is what made it so interesting and replayable. I will admit, after a couple playthroughs on your own, you pretty much get a good idea of the game, but once you add co-op in the mix, that's where the game gets really fun. This game seemed to be Microsoft's version of the popular Dreamcast games Power Stone or Nintendo's Smash Bros. Instead of fighting in a static map, you fight your way throughout the levels as they are changing. The art style is really cool as it is clear that you are on a budget film set. For example, when you're being chased by a T-Rex, you can clearly see the costume stitching on its chest. There is also a constant barrage of falling props and film equipment that you will need to look out for. Health and safety is not a priority here. You are one of the main actors on the latest action B-movie. Thing is, you are fighting for screen time, quite literally, with a host of characters, some of which you'd expect to see in a kung fu film, such as Master Shou Yu, Ninja Hiya, and Samurai Chop, along with her baby Sticks, but there are also a few interesting characters that stand out, such as the shotgun-wielding Spice Girls lookalike, Lucy Cannon, and luchador Captain Wonton. The maps, or in this case movie sets, are designed really well. All are completely unique from each other and are based on different types of films, such as dinosaur films, alien invasion, as well as the tough city streets that you would tend to find in a kung fu action movie. The maps change as the levels play out. When playing the sinking of the Titanic, you have to battle your friends all while the ship is being destroyed around you. Being a film set, you will need to avoid all of the low-hanging cameras, weights and various other props that get in your way. Them interns really aren't doing their job. But aside from that, this is a super fun game. It doesn't take itself seriously whatsoever, and I think that's what adds to it. There's a few cheeky little jokes thrown in along the way, and with the narrator telling you how bad you are, you're sure to get a few laughs out of this one. Brute Force is a squad-based third-person shooter that utilises 4 members of a team who all have unique traits. Each member has their own way of removing foes through stealth, long range or a full-on firefight. You visit various planets within the known worlds, building your ragtag team and fighting off hostile aliens. Essentially, you're here to watch over the universe and make sure everything runs smoothly. You begin as Tex. Tex is one of the Confederate's baddest boys. Sadly, he's not as bad as the group of aliens that kill him off in the beginning of the game. Thankfully, his memory chip gets moved into a new body and he's ready to start again. His main abilities are Berserk, which means he's able to dual wield. Did I also mention he's a heavy weapons expert, so yes, he's dual wielding rocket launchers. Next up is Brutus, who is probably the most unique character of the squad. He is from a race of beings called Feral. This lizard-like chap is one with nature. His people live in the natural habitats and he isn't the biggest fan of technology. He is the fastest out of the group and he can run on all fours. Hawk is a sneaky scout. She can get around silently and won't really be noticed unless she's directly in their vision. Her main weapon is a little pistol, but if she's close enough to the enemies when she's sneaking up on them, she has a power blade to finish them off. And finally, we have Flint. Flint is a cyborg sniper. She is the last of her line of simps before they changed it up and went with a different machine. Being a sniper, her main weapon is a sniper rifle, but she also has a pistol for her sidearm. What made this game interesting is how they made the world of brute force feel like it was full of life. Each level or planet you travelled to felt as though you was in a completely different atmosphere. Even though the hardware wasn't what we have today, these games use storyline and immersive characters to set their story.
I can't save you now, Brutus. The new gods have made our clan far superior.
So, Far Cry probably isn't a title that you'd expect to hear on a Forgotten Games list, as I'm sure you know, this series is still going today. It's just the first few iterations of the game had you evolve into a human-like predator, hunting bad dudes for injecting you with some radioactive goop. Nowadays you're attacking cults and evil regimes, but yeah, back in the day you was literally a dude that had a boat and would take people out for fishing trips. One minute you're driving your boat for work, the next it's on fire and you're swimming for your life. From the get-go, this game is very fast-paced. Once you get to land, you realise you have to save the people that were captured from your boat, all while murdering everyone that destroyed it. Soon after, you realise you've stumbled onto something a bit bigger than you first thought. Being young when I played this, I didn't know too much about the game. And I'll admit, I wasn't the best, so there was a lot of dying. Half an hour's game time probably took me around an hour and a half. So by the time I got to the bit where they jack you up with superpowers, it blew my mind. I thought I was just playing a revenge game where this dude was angry about his boat. As well as a super interesting storyline about the evolution of Jack Carver, Far Cry also had online. The online was super duper unique. The game allowed you to build your own tropical island maps that you could take online and play with friends or randoms. The map building tools were very versatile and in-depth. You were able to let your creativeness run wild. You could build rivers, mountains, hills, forests and settlements among other things. All of the stuff that you built was in the same art style as the campaign. One team's objective is to make it from point A to point B safely. The other team has the mutant powers you get from the campaign, and their job is to hunt everyone down and murder them. Sadly, you don't really see this sort of online gameplay anymore, as it's mostly just generic maps, or it's going to be a battle royale, or you know what I mean, like. This allowed you to create whatever you wanted and show it online to anyone that wanted to play it. Personally, I would love to see this return in future games. This is probably the most obscure title on this list. Men of Valor takes us back to Vietnam. You take control of Dean Shepard as he leads his squad through the bloodshed and carnage. During the early noughties, game developers had Vietnam on the brain, and this was one of the multitude of stories that came out at the time, exploring this part of history. Men of Valor was an Xbox-only title, but sadly it was the only of its kind. You battle your way through 15 levels that cover all sorts of terrain. Many of the levels are based on historical battles that actually occurred during this conflict. You'll have to lead your squad through all different terrains, from booby-trap-filled jungles, dodging bullets flying at your face across beachheads, driving through snaking rivers, as well as dodging all sorts of carnage in urban areas. You'll visit various different locations in this game and you have to fight your way through all of them. Through the bloodshed, Men of Valor tells the story of how young men left everything they knew and put themselves through horrific situations for their country. This game really makes you feel for your character and the men that you're leading in your squad. Through great storytelling, you really feel for these virtual warriors, and if any of you have played Vietnam games, you know that you shouldn't get too attached to your friendly NPCs. So when you're walking through that jungle, watch your step, as it might be your last. What was the worst character death in a game that you played? Let me know down in the comments section. Games like Sirius Sam nowadays are very few and far between. The best way I can describe Sirius Sam is that it's FPS on crack. It has clearly taken advice from the godfathers of this genre, Doom, Wolfenstein and Duke Nukem. Whereas the previous titles were very gritty and they had some adult themes, Sirius Sam took more of a comedic path. You take control of Sam Stone, a young man ready to save humanity against all sorts of wacky characters hell-bent on destroying the world. Each level plays out fairly the same. You will need to clear all the enemies within the large maps before you can move on to the next stage. Much like Doom Guy, Sam isn't one for hiding behind cover and taking cheeky shots at his enemies. Oh no, he's running head on. The game wants you to keep moving, dodging and strafing around the hordes of enemies hungry for your blood. There are over 20 different styles of enemies, all different shapes and sizes. They're going to come at you from the floor, the air and directly at you. It wouldn't be a running gun without an arsenal at your disposal, and this game does not disappoint. with all sorts at the tips of your fingers, such as various rocket launchers, rifles, snipers, explosives, the most notable being the Sirius bomb. You'll be able to rip apart your enemies, no problem. The Sirius bomb will kill everything within a 750 yard radius except for bosses, so make sure you have one handy for them sticky situations. Personally, I think they should add this into Call of Duty. There has been some later additions to this franchise, and there is talks of a new one on the way. I just feel like Sam was a much bigger character in the late 90s and the early 90s, and now he's been overshadowed by other titles. But I love Sam, and I'll always root for the underdog. Okay, next up on this list is Breakdown. Breakdown is one of the more unique games on this list, and not many games have followed its path since. From the outset, it is an FPS with an emphasis on the hand-to-hand combat, although you do pick up enough weapons along the way, shooting the bad boys and teach them a lesson not to be on the bad team. Firstly, you wake up inside a strange laboratory and you have no idea how you got there. I hate it when that happens. This laboratory is in the business of making super soldiers, and now you are part of it. Breakdown is an amazing first-person shooter from Namco. You take control of Derek Cole. Derek Cole isn't the smartest cookie. He comes to this laboratory and lets them do their naughty test on him, poking him with all sorts of needles. Unlucky for him, it wasn't smack, but instead it was super soldier juice, Talangin. Similar to Far Cry, you get special abilities. Would you look at that? So not only are you a weapons expert, you now have super abilities. With these new abilities, it's your job to get out of the facility, and while we're at it, we'll put a stop to them super soldiers, so they can't be used in sinister ways. Solus is the big bad wolf in this scenario. He's the leader of the super soldiers and he runs this facility. This guy is no joke. By the time you reach him, you will have unlocked all of your abilities, so you will have quite a bit of an arsenal behind you. But this is the super soldier. This guy will put your skills to the test. When I bring this game up to friends, not many of them have played it. I think this one got dusted under the rug a little bit, and I'm pretty sure the reviews on this game were pretty mixed. I remember sitting down as little Morvi with my dad, and we played this game from start to finish. We thought it was amazing. It's very unique compared to other games, so if you're looking for a really cool story about trying to save the world from super soldiers and evil scientists, then this is definitely the one for you. Okay, next up is Taofeng Fist of the Lotus. I'm pretty sure this was supposed to be Microsoft's answer to Mortal Kombat. Taofeng was one of the first games on this console, and it was a great advert for the hardware. The gameplay was very fast and fluid, and the graphics were super polished for the time. You also didn't need to learn 50 combos to have fun, so you could sit down with a friend and butter mash away and still look super cool. On the outset, it's another fighting game. 1v1, fight to the death. It has a very cool lineup of characters which always helps fighting games. All of them with their unique fighting styles, including a cyborg monk, a ripped dude who loves tribal tattoos, at least someone does, and a guy who looks like Eddie Gordo and Liu Kang had a love child. The story is about two ancient sects, the Pale Lotus and the Black Mantis. They have been fighting throughout history and they still fight today in the not too distant future. What made this game super interesting is throughout the fight you were able to see the damage being done to the fighters. Over the course of the fight, the fighters would get their clothes torn as well as bleeding from all sorts of places. This hadn't really been seen in fighting games. Even Mortal Kombat didn't have a damage animation and you only got the fatalities at the end. Whereas this game, you could see the brutality unfold before your eyes. This was one of the main selling points for me with this game as Little Morvi. Sadly, this game faded into obscurity and we didn't really hear much of it after this title, just like many of the other fighting games that are falling along the wayside. But maybe one day we'll see a resurgence of Taofeng. I would love to see that myself. Anyway, on to the next game. One disc, no rules. Death Row is a game about a dystopian futuristic blood sport called Blitz. The best way to describe Blitz is that it's a hybrid of basketball and football, but instead of a ball, it's more like a frisbee. Also, instead of slide tackling, you pummel your opponent's face in. The sport plays out like this. Two teams of 4 players pushing the opposing side once they have the disc. The objective, shoot the disc through the circle to score points. Or, if you're feeling extra sinister, you can stop the other team by beating them into the ground. Of course, some teams were better at different tactics. For example, if you play the robots, they are unable to get knocked out. Across the game, there are 18 teams. You only have the option to play the first 4 and you will need to beat the rest of the teams to unlock them. The aesthetic changes drastically between the teams and this really benefits the world of Death Row. It gives the feeling that this is a really popular sport and instead of being shocked, many of the people tuning in and watching live are cheering on their favourite team. Teams change from all-female femme fatales, robot war machines unable to be knocked out, ninjas, convicts, and even spike-clad demon fans. It really showed the sport was reaching many different audiences and this sport had many fans within the universe. That's what I found interesting about this game. This world where a blood sport is being broadcast across the galaxy, showing people brutal fighting and that it's totally acceptable. The aesthetic is really like Blade Runner. The convict team, for example, their backstory is if they win the tournament, they are set free. All the other teams are armoured up, yet these guys are just running around in jumpsuits. Even though this was a niche sports game, it had a lot of lore behind it and that's what drew me in. So if you ever get the chance to pick this one up, do not hesitate. Okay, next up is Stubs the Zombie. Stubs is a classic. This one went under the radar for a lot of people I knew, which is pretty sad as it's one of the most fun solo and couch co-op games I've ever played. You take on the role of Stubs, a down on his luck corpse that reanimates in a futuristic society. And the aim of the game is you have to sort out unfinished business all while making an army of the dead along the way. Nothing can stop Stubs, from chewing on the heads of his victims to launching his guts to transform them into the undead minions. He is a very formidable foe. You also have a case of the body snatchers. You can remove your hand, and once you attach your hand to someone that's alive and well, you can take control of their body. Yes, you heard that right. Once you have a small army following you, you can sit back and watch the chaos ensue. This game doesn't take itself very seriously and there is a lot of tongue-in-cheek humour, and that's what made it fun. Well, that and munching on the head of policemen.
Hands were on my brain!
The big bad guys vary upon each level, as Stubs is crossing off anyone that wronged him while he was living. Firstly, you will come across the folks of Punch Bowl. They believe...
Welcome to Punch Bowl, a city built for the space age. Here in Punch Bowl, experimental science and state-of-the-art technology create a futuristic paradise the likes of which have never been seen. This is a city unlike any other, free of crime, pollution, poverty, and other urban blights.
But then, at the first sign of Stubs, want to throw some hands.
He stole my hot dog!
Oh, my goodness! We'd better find some way of relieving the pressure in his head.
Once the mayor gets wind of your antics, the heavies turn up. You'll eventually munch your way through hillbillies, prisoners, and even the army. Nothing is going to stop you.
No!
As you're playing through the game, you find out a bit more about Stubs and how he turned out the way he is. As I said previously, the game doesn't take itself too seriously, and you find out that Stubs was a travelling salesman, and his downfall came once he knocked on the door to sell some wares, and he fell in love with the lady that opened it. Sadly, her father turned up and he shot a massive hole in us. Thankfully, he does get his comeuppance. It just took Stubs to rot a little bit. Overall, this is one of my favourite games growing up, and if you ever get the chance to play it, do not hesitate.
Son of a bitch!
Yeah, this is DJ Professor K, baby, the master of mayhem, know what I'm saying? Bring you another Tokyo Underground pirate radio broadcast from Jet Set Radio.
For some people, this game needs zero introduction, but I understand some of you wasn't even born when this bad boy game was released. Jet Set Radio Future graced our screens in 2002. This was the second and last title in the franchise, although there was a lot of improvements from the first game. One of the main improvements that they made to this game was in the original, the game was a time trial, whereas this one, it's fully free roam. To start with, this game mixed every edgy 13-year-old's hobbies and interests from the early noughties: extreme sports, vandalism, and sticking your finger to the man. All we needed was a character wearing a skull shirt to finish off that noughties aesthetic. Jet Set Radio, for people that don't know the game, we are set in the not so distant future version of Tokyo. You take control of various members of the GG gang, whose sole job is to skate around various areas of the city, hitting tags and pieces as they go, all while avoiding the police and fighting off the many other colourful graffiti gangs that plague the city. The main aim is to get your graffiti all over the city, taking anyone out along the way. One of the biggest draws to this game was the characters and all of the factions. Each character and faction was very unique, down from their clothing to their artwork, all the way to their dance moves. Unlocking characters was cool because you also got to see their artwork and you could mix and match through the various artists. For the gangs, of course, you had the GGs, comprised of the 3 main characters, Beat, Gum and Tab, as well as a few unlockable characters along the way. My favourite being Garum, the buggy looking dude flexing his pecs. Then you had the other gangs, hell-bent on stopping you from putting up your art. You have the Love Shockers, Poison Jam, Rapid 99, the Immortals, Doom Riders, and my personal favourite, the Noise Tanks. It was clear to tell each gang apart as they all had zany and interesting backstories as well as their outfit and artwork. Finally, the music. Oh my god, the music is amazing in this game. It has one of the most unique soundtracks I've ever heard, and many of the songs will get stuck in your head. It's been over 10 years since I last properly picked up this game, and I'm still humming some of the songs today. The music is very fast and upbeat, and it really helps with the flow of the game. All in all, this game is a 10 out of 10 absolute masterpiece. I've seen online many people begging Xbox to re-release this or remake it, but as of yet nothing's confirmed, so we can just keep our fingers crossed. And that is my top 10 games for the Xbox original. Thank you so much guys for watching this one. Is there any that I missed out? Is there any from your childhood that you think should have been on this list? Let me know down in the comments section. If you want to see more, hit that bell and the subscribe button. If you'd like to watch me collect achievements and do 100%, please follow my Twitch, and that is twitch.tv/Mr. Morvi. My Twitter handle is Mr. Morvi all caps, and my Facebook is the same. But until next time guys, I've been Morvi, and I'll see you next time. Peace!